Oh, we have someone else on the meeting.
Yes, that's you.
No, apart of me, I see behind you there is a very, very handsome boy or girl. First of all, Stephen, I'm struggling always with pronouncing English and Scottish surnames because I'm Russian. And I bet you can pronounce my name even. So is it MOFFAT or MOFFAT?
Yes. It's MOFFAT, so yes, it's fine.
Uh-huh.
It's a small village in the borders.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Yes.
So,
Yes,
is it like...
I still have a chief of the clan who's in America just now. So I have a clan MOFFAT, and we have a chief, and he's a young man in America.
Wow, so you have your own tartan.
Sorry, you have my own?
Tartan.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
Wow, what colors?
It's not very exciting. The MOFFAT tartan's a kind of grey plaid, very plain one, kind of like myself. So it's not bright and vicious. My dad, his granny is a fighting Wallace, so of the famous Wallaces. So he's got a very strong, bright red, but I have a very dull grey.
Well, I bet it's very classy.
Very classy, very classy.
I have a few scarves with tartans, and my favorite one is, as you say, dull gray, but it's not really dull. I think it's classy, but maybe people think it's dull.
It could be the MOFFAT tartan.
Maybe I don't know. I just chose the kind of the classiest one. So maybe. So what we do in these interviews, we're talking with Scottish entrepreneurs and share their stories and what helped them to open a business, what was their passion is about, how it's all started. I went through your LinkedIn page, and I know now that you're a serial entrepreneur. So basically, you've done, I don't know how many businesses.
I think 19 starts. 19 starts.
Yeah, that's very impressive. So why?
Each time you learn a little more, so you go a little better each time, and a little smoother and a little bigger. So it's a continual learning process. It's like asking somebody that cycles, why do you cycle every other day? Because you try and go a little bit further, a little bit harder, a little bit faster each time. So continual learning.
What about the kind of startups? All startups I saw, they were from very different like industries even, and very, 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 very different. Was it like just by accident, or you've been interested in different areas, or you've been trying to find yourself, or just something worked and you're like, hey, let's do money, let's make money?
Money will only motivate you so far in business. It's actually not difficult to make a standard of living in this world. And if money is your motivator, you'll plateau very early, and the drive and focus has to be something else. To answer your question, there's two key factors in the multiplicity of the disciplines and the sectors. One of them was learning. There was very little to learn to repeat the same thing. So if I built a business in one market to then go back into that market, there's not much learning in that for me. Also, as you then cross across multiple markets and product sectors, what you find is the basic rules of business become very clear because they sustain across all of them. And it gives you a very clear understanding of what the base truth rules of business are. And you tend to see that those rules exist in all sectors. And then you have nuances. So within high value fashion brands, you have certain nuances. Within garden, furniture and barbecue, you have certain nuances that are seasonal applied more so than anything. And also supply chain derivatives and issues in the supply chain, and the product has its own specific type of problems, as well as methodology for selling it, retailing it, and stocking it. Whereas selling cars or producing software has a completely different set of nuances. But the truth of presenting a brand, presenting a product or a service, and taking money in for that and getting people to buy it, basically, is carte blanche across the whole world, global market, whichever way you want to put that.
Fair enough. So you've been selling goods, basically products. You've been building software, what you basically do now. Have you been producing products, like manufacturing them?
Yep. We have a small startup that's producing parts for old cars. So I, as a hobby, I build old cars and race old cars.
No way.
Yeah.
This is I love old cars.
Old cars are dangerous things.
Oh my gosh. What is your favorite car?
Yeah, I race historic cars. And in part of that joy and love of building them, there's a need to make your own parts. So we're now producing these parts for rare and hard to find cars. We're getting a 3D CNC machine, and we're going to machine these pieces and offer them to the rest of the market. Because, I mean, some of the cars, the oldest car that I race is from 1928, and the youngest will be from 1970, 71. So they don't manufacture the things for them. The MGs are very well supported. Mm-hmm. Certain brands there's a lot of, but when you start to get into some of the rarer ones, you're making the parts for yourself.
Steven, I crazy about all cars, and I was wondering, what is your favorite car?
For me, or that I own, or in the world?
No, for you personally.
For me personally, I like specials. So for me, there was a great time in racing just after the Second World War, when the garagistas during the 50s, the British engineers were men in flat caps wearing brown overalls working in their garages, and they were making fantastic and bizarre machines, which are referred to as specials now. It's a kind of recompilation. They took very early cars and then cut the body off and put the chassis together different ways. So I like these one-off kind of things. As far as the execution of the engineering and movement of a car, I mean, some of the very early Porsches are absolutely stunning. So are the Mercedes, the SLs. I mean, there's so many beautiful things. It's kind of like saying what's your only food that you're going to eat for the rest of your life. You try a little bit of everything, and each one is engineered for a specific process. So hill climb cars are designed to go and accelerate very quickly, but they don't have a top end speed. Cars that were built for land speed records have a massive top speed but very slow acceleration, and it's just horses for courses. So there's many cars, but for me, I love specials. I'm rebuilding an Ashley Usher 750 special, and that to me is an amazing thing.
I think my favorite is Fiat 500.
Yeah, little babies.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Great cars, a lot of character.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like super cute and like very fancy kinda, but not really. So yeah. That's fascinating. So what is the name of the company which works?
Super Slick Steve's Speed Shop.
Ooh, I definitely gonna Google.
Yeah, you can Google, but there's nothing there yet because we're still working on it. We're still building the company. At the moment, what we're doing, I don't know if you want to see it. So basically, this is a high compression head off of a 1926 Austin.
It's the top of the engine, right?
Top of the engine, yes. This is made out of cast iron, so we're going to scan this to a certain extent and rebuild it, and then we're going to CNC it out of billet aluminium, very hard aluminium, and make it much lighter because this weighs a ton, and make it slightly more efficient. And then we're going to sell these into the market as speed.
Wow.
Which is cool fun. But there's a guy who's working on the project, and basically what he's doing is we take all the old original parts, and then we have to turn these 3D DXF files so that we can then machine them, and then we have a partnership with a local machine shop who then will make them for us as we go through it. But there's a lot of trial and error. So I've got some sample pieces here. So these are the top of the valve stem. So where the valve comes up into the engine, you have a little cotter pin that sits and it stops it going too far and falling through into where the cylinder is. So we're making these. So again, we have to make the part as a kind of prototype structure and then trial it and run it and then see how it goes. So it's a very slow business to build, but it's very, very interesting and a lot of joy because the technology is on a very human scale and it's much more artistic than it is modern engineering, which is very, very finite details. If you watch Formula One racing, it's quite heartless. It's very, very logical. It's very, very number orientated and data orientated, whereas racing historics is much more passionate, and it's passion that counts for me.
Yeah, I remember one movie regarding this topic with Chris Hemsworth, and about German driver, German guy and American guy, and they've been kind of in this competition, and American guy was all about, hey, let's do it with passion, and German guy was like, no, we need to be very precise, very logical, there is no emotions should be on the race. And it's about basically two very different people and how they are going through this journey of being Formula One.
Yeah, that's a great analogy for life and business. There's many, many philosophies and many, many goals to achieve within it. And some of them are driven by emotion and passion, and some guys are driven by very hard data numbers. Neither one is right and neither one is wrong.
So basically, you have all those different companies and their target market completely different. I bet target market for this old car company is completely different from people who will be interested in your workbooks.uk business.
Yeah, so, but there's still people. And that lovely Venn diagram shows you that there will be people who are starting businesses that also race old cars. So yes, it's a very different set of offerings and a very different set of rules to build the companies in the way that you achieve it. And the motivation behind them is different.
Also, a part of just being different in terms of different kind of target groups, they're also different in terms of B2B and B2C. So cars, it's B2C, your software company is B2B, I assume. So what do you find is easier? It is easier to build B2B or B2C business?
They each present their own challenges. It was something that I did in the portfolio very early on, that as I started growing companies, I realized that they were all business to consumer. So I then developed a couple of business to business entities. But again, it's the idea that drives the process and then dictates who the end client is. I used to consider blanket covering and where all these things were coming from, but now it's much more about solving a problem, building something that's worth building.
What about idea creation? So you're just passionate about something and you feel, oh, there is a problem, I can solve it. Or sometimes you're like, oh, there is something I could do here, and you're just offering solution.
There's a mixture of things going on for me. I have a very complex set of beliefs about building companies now, about what they should be and what they can be. If you look at I suppose from the quantitative easing time forward, and again the 50s and 60s, when Kinsey and these guys developed their ideology on what markets were and what businesses were, they very much for that next 20 or 30 years, we built businesses to make money. The only thing they must do is make money. And it was Kinsey that said that the only and sole priority of any business is to pay its shareholders. And now we feel so surprised that we've let these entities grow in a world where they're told make money is the only reason to exist, and suddenly they start to make very antisocial decisions, and they cut their staff and they forgo people's livelihoods and lifestyles because we've put into their DNA that the only responsibility they have is to make money and exist. When realistically, when we form companies, we should be giving them a social agenda and a moral agenda as well that reflects our political and social beliefs. And I believe that we should build companies that have a moral agenda. It's just building companies to make money. Well, is a once you've done it, it's a very futile task, because there's more to the world than just making money. There has to be more to your existence than just making money.
Definitely. And my personal belief that entrepreneurs, it's the very important part of society, because we basically design our future. We taken the society from where it's now to somewhere we see our vision kind of a future, and we kind of talk the society with us. And I completely agree with you about if company from the past, we never ever had this necessity to have a social moral agenda in their vision, because it was just how the society was before. But now, as a part of society, entrepreneurs need to be thinking. So if we taking the society further, where we taking them? Do we want to live there? Do we want to live where we're going? So absolutely. It's kind of...
Yeah, I think from Corbusier forward, when people started to consider the impact on society of what they were producing and making, prior to that, we never really measured any industry against its social impact or its environmental impact, and now we have to measure them all. And when we form companies, we should ingrain deeply into them that is part of their remit or goal or reason to tell. Why is that need to be there? So the why is very important, and not just the how and what it does, to quote Cynic.
My co-founder and I, a part of working on our current project, we also start working on another one, like sustainable project about plastic-free living. What about you? Do you have any sustainable project, like environmental friendly, not environmental friendly, but projects which are tackling environmental problems in your portfolio? Is this something you're interested to hear?
Yes. Indirectly, yes, because there's a lot of things that I've done in the past that have shortened supply chains, it's shortened the movement of goods in the world, and we also looked at packaging and processing, and we were paperless very, very early on, and all these things are things that we should all adopt as our ABC of building a company. They are a given now to me that those things happen. Those problems of environment are I have helped a few people form that type of business, but it hasn't really sang to me directly. I care deeply about the environment. I used to surf a lot, and water to me is very important, and the environment that I live in is very important. But I've never really wanted to tackle that issue. There's a lot of really good, clever guys working at it, and I'm not that smart.
How about having skills to start a business? How is it important? Do you think it's important to have skill set in specific area to be able to build a business in this area? For example, if I want to build a business which build old cars, restore them, do I need to be mechanical engineer to do it?
I would ask you, do you need to be?
Again, I kind of have mechanical engineer background, because at my high school, I was studying cars and all these engines and stuff for some reasons. I don't know why they decided to do it.
Come and hang out in the garage. We're rebuilding a couple of really nice engines just now. Come and hang out in the garage. That's where we should have done this. We should have done it in the garage. For me, the only thing you need to have is will. You have to have will. You've got to want it, because there's a lot of things you have to forego and pay to get that done. If you're going to build a company, it's going to take time, effort, resources, a lot of things you have to give over. I spent 20, 30 years of my life building just as big a company as I could all the time, and working 7 days a week, 16, 18 hours, not even bat an eyelid, and forwent relationships and forwent other things in life for that. And I don't know now at the age that I'm at that I would pay as heavy a cost to achieve that.
Yeah, it's very kind of important topic for me right now, and for my co-founder as well. So we're both working on this startup, and it takes quite a lot of time, and we always feel like we need to put more time because it's not enough. And you need to sacrifice something to be able put more time into something. So, and basically we have right now 1 day per week off, just one. And we've been thinking, okay, it doesn't feel like it's enough. Maybe we should take this day as a working day as well. So it's basically what we've been talking this morning. And I was like, to be fair, I don't think we have time to be off. So probably we should start taking this time for company.
You have to see the process of building a company as a muscle. So you take an idea from the back of your head and you force it into the world and make it real. And that takes momentum, energy, drive, people with belief beside you. It takes money and resources and all these things. The more efficient you become at doing that, and the better you become at doing that, the less it takes from you. And eventually you get to the stage that you realize that it's always there the next day, but you have to go through the journey of learning how to do it. It's kind of like doing reps in a gym. There's no shortcut to it. You've got to go and pay your dues early on and make mistakes for yourself. Some people assimilate knowledge very, very quickly and differently to me, but I am of the bang your head against the wall until the wall falls down school of thought, and that's kind of how I've got through to here, which is not a good thing, but it's a way. It's what I've got. I was fairly fully educated.
Yeah, I love the analogy of building a startup as a muscle. I think it's completely my feeling about that. And it's like today we were discussing our second project, and I was like, well, we have all the skill set we built for last 2 years. We probably can get this going much quicker. Yeah, and I was like, it's not gonna take us as much time and as much effort. It's probably will be like just, hey, let's do it. So for you with your 19 businesses, it's just like, okay, this is nice morning. I'm ready to start a new one.
I have very little doubt about tackling the problem. So initially what you do is when you start to build a business, you question yourself, you doubt it, and then come a point you go, yeah, let's just put a business together. And you'll be sitting at a dinner table with somebody and an idea will float around, but let's do that. I'd love to do that. Can we make that real? Can we get away with that in this world? And then maybe behind that you'll put some reasoning about, well, what will that be in the world, and what can it do, and what type of people can we help, and what does it mean to society? So the more you do it, the more complex a thing you can put in the world, and also the easier it becomes.
Completely. Stephen, I would wish to continue our conversation because it's such an amazing opportunity for me to talk with such an experienced entrepreneur, and also a big expert on my favorite topic, old cars. But we're kind of running out of the time. So I will move fast to the second part where I will ask 5 questions, very short. And I will ask you to answer as short as possible, 1, 2 words, maybe 1 sentence. So first question, how do you see yourself in 5 years?
Drunk. In fact, next week I'm going to go and get my skipper's license. So in 5 years I'll be on a boat in the Bahamas.
Oof, okay. I like the plan. So I'm not asking my second question, which was where you see yourself in 5 years, Bahamas. In terms of what is your what is entrepreneurship for you?
It's a word that people put on other people. Entrepreneurship is they do define it quite interestingly. So entrepreneurship for me, in a small sentence, sorry, yeah, it's a word other people hang on other people.
I love it. Good. What about what is most important in life?
Learning and an open, flexible mind. When you wake up to a positive mind, life is easier. So positive mind frame, learn, every day learn, every day learn. So the more you learn, and yeah, just keep learning and keep absorbing. So that for me is probably the most important part. One of the key elements. There's many things. But
definitely. Yeah. And it's how we've been taught in RBS Accelerator growth mindset. So completely agree. What is your next car you want to build?
So I'm going down to look at MD Sprite at Castle Coombe next Saturday. There's a closed race down there. So I'll go down to play around with that. The next car I'm going to build is going to be electric. I've built an electric scooter recently and I've converted a motorbike to electricity. And we're playing with the idea of converting a car to electric because the electric powertrain is the future. It's so torquey, it's so efficient, and it's so simple. And literally, we ripped a petrol engine out of a bike frame and put in a battery, 2 wires, a controller, and a motor, and the thing went. And it was lovely. You drive about in complete silence. There's no. For me, some of the great things about old cars is the noises and the smell and the movement, but electricity is like, whoa, this is really interesting. Really interesting. So an electric car for the next thing.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Stephen, for the interview and for taking time. And I know I think you're very busy with 19 startups in your baggage. How many are alive right now?
Absolutely none.
I think at least two.
I don't know, at least two, yeah. At least two in the startup phase. For me, it's always the next business. It's
makes sense. Perfect. Thank you very much. And guys, please follow Stephen Moffat on LinkedIn and check his startups. Please stay in touch for more interviews with Scottish entrepreneurs.